May 1945. Europe was finally quiet. The guns had fallen silent, and Hitler was dead. The Nazi regime lay in ruins, and the streets of Berlin, Vienna, and along the Elbe River were alive with celebration. American soldiers embraced Russian soldiers. Vodka and whiskey flowed freely. People laughed, danced, and cried. For a moment, it seemed like the world had caught its breath after 4 years of unimaginable war. But not everyone was smiling. Not everyone was at ease. General George S. Patton, one of America's most feared and brilliant military minds, watched the celebrations with cold, suspicious eyes. While politicians in Washington and London cheered for the Soviet allies who had helped crush Nazi Germany, Patton did not see friendship. He saw the seeds of a new enemy. "We have defeated the wrong enemy," he famously warned. And nowhere was this tension more visible than at a Russian-hosted victory banquet. The banquet was a lavish affair, designed to impress. Generals from both sides sat beneath chandeliers, their uniforms gleaming with medals, while tables groaned under the weight of caviar, fine meats, and bottles of vodka. On the surface, it was a scene of peace, but beneath it, the air was thick with suspicion. A Russian general stood, raised his glass, and proposed a toast meant to signify unity. But Patton did not raise his glass. He did not smile. Instead, he stared at the man, and the insult that followed shocked everyone in the room, even the translator. To understand why this moment was so explosive, we have to go back to the context of 1945. For 4 years, America and Russia had fought side by side, but they were never true allies. They were partners of convenience, united only by a shared enemy, Nazi Germany. But as the Third Army pushed east and the Red Army swept west, meeting at the Elbe River, the cracks in this alliance became impossible to ignore. Patton commanded the most powerful army the world had ever seen. He had raced across Germany, liberated towns, and crushed the remnants of the Wehrmacht. His goal had been Berlin, then Prague, but General Eisenhower had ordered him to stop. Let the Russians take those cities. Let them claim victory. Patton was furious. "Why are we stopping?" he demanded. "We are handing Europe over to the communists." And Patton had reason to worry. He had seen the Red Army in action. They weren't just liberating nations, they were occupying them. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, everywhere Soviet tanks rolled, they stayed. He wrote in his diary, "The Russians are Mongols. They are savages. They have no respect for human life." He feared that if the Americans withdrew, the Soviets would march all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. When Patton met the Russian commanders, he was not there to celebrate. He was there to observe, to assess, to measure the threat. One of the most famous meetings took place near Linz, Austria. Patton met Marshal Tolbykin, a hero of the Soviet Union, commander of the Third Ukrainian Front. The Russians staged a massive parade to impress him. Thousands of soldiers, tanks, artillery, even Cossacks on horseback. Patton watched silently. His face betrayed nothing. Afterward, he told his staff bluntly what he thought. "They are the shabbiest bunch of sons of I've ever seen." He criticized their uniforms, their discipline, their organization. Yet he also recognized their toughness. They were dangerous. "I can beat them," he said, "but I have to do it now before they get stronger." Then came the lunch. In Russian military culture, toasts were everything. To Stalin, to Roosevelt, to the army, each toast accompanied by a shot of vodka. Patton, who hated vodka, sipped politely at first, but the air was tense. Russian generals smiled, but their eyes were cold. Patton hated them, they hated him. The banquet hall was like a cage of predators circling each other, waiting for the first strike. Then came the moment that would go down in history. A high-ranking Russian general, some say Zhukov, others a corps commander, stood, glass in hand. He spoke through an interpreter, offering a toast to Allied solidarity. All eyes turned to Patton, the supreme commander of the Third Army. Eisenhower watched. The press watched. The world seemed to pause. Patton rose, but he did not lift his glass. He looked the general in the eye. "I will not drink with you," he said. Gasps filled the room. Refusing a toast in Russian culture is a grave insult, akin to a slap in the face. But Patton was just getting started. "I will not drink with you or any other Russian son of a bitch." Silence. Absolute silence. Even the translator trembled. "General, I cannot tell him that," the interpreter whispered. "Tell him exactly what I said." "Word for word," Patton growled. The words were delivered, and the room held its breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion. But instead, the Russian general laughed. He slammed his hand on the table and returned the sentiment. "Tell General Patton I think he is a son of untold." A small smile crept onto Patton's lips. The tension broke. He raised his glass. "All right," he said. "Now that we understand each other, I will drink to that. One son of a to another." The story of that toast became legendary among soldiers and historians alike. But for Patton, it was not a joke, it was a warning. In the following weeks, he became increasingly vocal. He argued, "We need to fight them now." He proposed rearming German soldiers who had surrendered, combining them with the Third Army to push the Red Army back into Russia. "We're going to have to fight them sooner or later. Why not now while our army is intact?" he told his staff. To his wife, he wrote, "I believe that by taking a strong stand, we can save the world from a tyranny worse than Hitler." No one listened. The world was exhausted. Politicians wanted peace. The American public wanted soldiers home. Eisenhower was horrified. "George, stop talking like that," he warned. "The Russians are our allies." Patton shook his head. "Ike, if you don't fight them now, you will be fighting them for the next 50 years, and you will lose far more lives." His blunt honesty and refusal to maintain diplomatic niceties made him dangerous. The press called him a warmonger, unstable, reckless. Eventually, Eisenhower had no choice. Patton was relieved of command. The Third Army, the army he loved more than life itself, was taken from him. He was relegated to paperwork. He called it shuffling papers, and felt like a prophet punished for telling the truth. And as Patton predicted, the Iron Curtain fell across Eastern Europe. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, all fell under Soviet control. Patton would die months later, in December 1945, in a mysterious car crash. But his words at that dinner party, that brutal honesty, echoed for decades. Historians still ask, was he right? If the Allies had stood up to Stalin in 1945, could the Cold War have been avoided? Could Korea, Vietnam, and countless other conflicts have been prevented? We will never know. What we do know is this: George S. Patton was not a diplomat. He was a warrior. He saw the world in black and white, friends and enemies. And when a Russian general tried to pretend friendship, Patton refused to lie. He looked him in the eye and called it as he saw it. In a world of politics, spies, and fragile alliances, Patton's story reminds us that sometimes the truth is dangerous. Warriors don't toast the enemy, even at a victory party. They face them. If you believe history needs more men like Patton, hit that like button. And subscribe for more unfiltered stories about the generals, leaders, and soldiers who dared to break the rules and change the world forever.